Okay, Owen, as I watched you swing, there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out, and I've got Corey Seager up next to you as a major league example to illustrate a couple of things. So you can see with your negative movement, you're rocking into hip load, but there's a couple of things with your stride. The first thing is, and I hate to talk about like multiple things. Hate, I don't mean hate, but I just want to point out everything that I can here. Um, and so as we talk about getting into our hip load, which is good, the first thing that I want to talk about is as you watch your hands, as your stride foot comes down, you can see that right now you're starting to come forward before your foot's into the ground. So we're starting out with our top half. Now, the other thing that you can see is as you get into hip load here, you really have to start getting off of your back side, and I'll use Seager to illustrate that. And a lot of that will just come with as you get older, as you get stronger, as you develop athletically. But as you get a little bit stuck on your back leg, you can see that as you get to toe touch, we're not in a really as strong of a position as we can be with our lower half. If you watch Corey Seager, and I know it's a major leaguer, but you can see how he is getting more weight off of his back leg in his stride. So when he's at toe touch, you can see how he hasn't started to rotate anything here yet, and you can see just looking at the potential energy that he's got a lot more that he's going to be able to drive into the ball. Now, what you do really, really, really well as you hit, the way that your hands work, staying close to your back shoulder, and the way that you work through is really good, and you release your back side. What we want to do is work on how we can set ourselves up early. And if you watch Corey Seager, and you watch, I know we always talk about we don't load our hands. We talk about loading our back hip. But tied into that is we want to make sure that we don't unload our hands before we start our swing. And you can just see how Seager, as he's getting into toe touch, doesn't have anything going forward, and he's going to continue to where he gets to heel down here. You can see how everything is still back, and you can see how he's going to have everything still stored up, ready to drive into the ball. As you get into heel strike here, you can see how you've kind of already spent some of this potential energy and how this has already started to come forward as we're getting into our heel strike. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is when you look at where Seager is when he gets to toe touch, we'll call it there. Get you set there. The position of your hands in the angle of your bat is just going to make a slower path to the ball. We always talk about the top hand being about a fist away from our back shoulder. And you can see, I think your top hand is more than a fist away from your back shoulder. And while there's no one set way that you have to set up and hold the bat, I think that if you got a little closer to your shoulder and you got more towards a 45-degree angle, you can see you're a little bit past that 45-degree angle, significantly past that 45-degree angle. That makes for a longer flight path to the ball. And you can see Seager is able to get much more of a driving action towards the ball. The other thing that I wanted you to see, because of how he uses his lower half first, if you watch his back elbow work independent of his hands, see how his back elbow leads? Whereas if we zoom in here, you can see how your hands are coming with your back elbow. Now, you do a phenomenal job of recovering in making that path through the ball, but we would be so much stronger, so much more powerful in our swing if to our toe touch, our hands still stayed back like you see with Seager instead of starting to come forward. Then he's able to get this driving action with his lower half and his back elbow dropping before his hands come, as opposed to getting all of that movement early with his top half. So I'll talk some more about this in person with you, but I just wanted you to see, as we work early on in our swing, with how we are using our lower half load, then get off of our backside into our stride before we start to move our hands forward when our heel starts to come down. Oops. You can see Seeger getting off of his backside and driving into the ground before his hands start to come into play.